Last week I reviewed a game called Evil Land. It was one of the worst RPGs I have ever played. I could list off so many words to describe how awful this game was. If I did that, I would need a thesaurus, a dictionary, and it would take way too much time. Instead of that, let me put it this way. It was a game that claimed to be a parody, but used it as a crutch to make a boring, useless, brain-dead game that copied Final Fantasy VIII's Triple Triad card game, and was just not funny or compelling at all. With that rage out of the way, I mentioned a game called DLC Quest. It was a much funnier and better playing game. Since I haven't reviewed it yet, I thought it would be a good time to take a look at it. The development is pretty basic. It was developed and published by Going Loud Games, released on November 11, 2011, with the expansion pack released in March of 2013. Going Loud Studios is an independent studio that's probably the closest studio near me. According to their press page, they are based in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and founded on September 10, 2010. They have done 3 games so far, and if this is any indication of their quality, I might go check the other 2 out. The other 2 are Zombie Accountant and Lair of the Evildoer. Before we get into the game, I also thought their policy with YouTube was a nice gesture to people who want to see this game get more exposure. They said pretty much, hey, if you want to make a video using our game, that's fine. Just give us a plug in the description and feel free to monetize it. Classy act, guys, and I will do so. Moving on before I sound even more like a cheerleader for this company, let's get into the game. The game literally gives you everything you need to know at the start of the game. You are the nameless hero trying to save the princess, defeat bad guy, and live happily ever after. The game even explains it out to you, which I thought it was kind of funny for anyone who has played so many of these games and might go crazy if they saw another, the same old cliche plot like this. The graphics are self-explanatory. The game looks exactly like a game from the 8-bit era of PC and console gaming. For what it is, it accomplishes the goal with no problem. It can feel nostalgic, and fans of this pixel art style will enjoy it. The levels are also somewhat a representation of a good game from that era. There's more than enough room for you to jump around, get your job done, and move on. My only problem is that you have to be into this art style to get why it works. It's very minor, and if you bought this game not liking this art style, going like, oh, the graphics on this suck, it's your own fault. The audio is very minimal. There's more than enough music for how short this and the expansion pack are. It again feels appropriate for what it tries to accomplish. It's not the most memorable music in the world, but it's not annoying either. The gameplay is a short, solid playing platforming game. It's not going to set the world on fire, and you could finish in a day if you include the DLC, pun intended. The thing is that if you get it for $5, it's worth it, and you could spend a lot more for a lot worse. The game plays like an 8-bit PC or console-style platforming game. The big difference is that it parodies the whole DLC part of the industry. This is done by having you purchase everything in the game, like sound effects, weapons, ability to move, and so on, with the game's currency. The game's NPCs, or non-playable characters, also pokes fun at this among other tropes in gaming. Now, how is this funnier than Evil Land? The game has a lot better timing. The jokes are fairly funny and are placed at the right time to be funny. I'm not going to spoil the jokes because I think it should be experienced for yourself. When it comes down to it, the biggest potential deal breakers are the level design and controls. The controls are almost perfect. They feel snug in my hands and feel again like an 8-bit game like Super Mario or Alex Kidd. You do get a bit of momentum, and it's just enough that it doesn't feel slippery. There are a few points where it did feel like I was getting killed by the game because of the controls. I think it was more so because I was getting cocky and I felt like I was making so much progress that I could rush through the rest of the game. The level design, on the other hand, isn't going to set the world on fire. Levels feel inspired by the 8-bit era, and it represents the better side of those games. The problem I have with DLC Quest is more with parody games in general. If you do a parody game of any genre, it will always, in my opinion, feel like you have been there, done that to some extent. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just that I would rather play a game that is funny rather than a game that pokes fun at stuff done hundreds of times before. Even still, this is a solid playing game. It's a good example of parodying games that can be funny and fun to play at the same time. Overall, DLC Quest is just a solid, fun little platforming game. It goes for around $3 to $5 Canadian on Steam, and I think it's worth it. Like I said, you can spend a lot more money on a lot worse games. I love what this game does, and I give it an 8 out of 10. Definitely go check the game and the developer out.